Kristina Campmany of Invesco writing, in many ways, we're at a crossroads, and the next few weeks should be telling for the first half of 2026. Kristina joins us now for more. Kristina, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much.
That wasn't a nice data point on retail sales, and thanks for being here. What was your reaction to that?
Look, I think the data remains very noisy, and we know we're continuing to balance the inflation in the labor market, but we know that there's this bifurcation of the consumer, and we're all sitting here talking about the K-shaped recovery, but we know that there's a lot of weakness out there in the labor market. It feels like we're back into this waiting for the next shoe to drop moment of you just aren't seeing labor creation, and if there's not job creation, it's hard to see the extent of a robust economy continue.
You think that
haven't seen it.
We might actually get some clarity, because we have been in this sort of, what are we looking at? How are these numbers really shaping up for quite a number of months? Why is this potentially an inflection point that could give us more clarity?
So I think that we're getting to this point of, does it break, or can we push through? We have some of the impacts of the fiscal and the big beautiful bill that should come online in first into second quarter. But the labor market, I think the market has kind of gotten acquainted to maybe the break-even payroll really is this 0 to 50K number. And I think that that's in the dialogue, but I don't know if the market's ready for seeing a negative print or seeing that is still reacted to as a more negative. So I think the labor market really holds the key here of, where do we go from here? And again, if you take a step back, you've never been able to maintain this level of growth without job growth.
Can the rotation that everyone keeps talking about continue without seeing the commensurate economic data, given that a lot of it's predicated on a whole host of spending that, frankly, the debt market is super happy to keep financing?
But you guys spoke about it earlier this morning. I mean, so much of the growth in the U.S. economy has been driven by the hyperscalers and the hyperscalers alone. And you have the administration focused on affordability and talking about pushing out $1,000 per consumer, per family. So, like, there's this big bifurcation, push and pull of where growth is really coming from. And again, I think the critical point comes back to, can you have labor market growth to then sustain it on a longer run basis?
When you see retail sales like this, and individuals before this were saying actually people were using the basically future tax rebate they knew they were going to get to spend. Well, they clearly were not. Why do you think they're actually going to use it when they get it? Potentially, is that just going to go to John's point earlier this week and last week, talking about electricity prices, or maybe paying down some of their own debt?
I think that there's definitely, the consumer has been, we've seen this since COVID, the consumer is much choosier, right? And they're savvy about where they're spending and how they're spending and rotating around as needed. But I think there's a lot of angst in the market and in the economy of, like, what is the next shoe to drop? Do I have, we're optimistic about better tax refunds, and you have the tax bill that's coming through, but, like, things feel on unsteady ground more broadly. So it doesn't shock me that the consumer is taking a pause, right?
What are you expecting from jobs tomorrow?
I think the risk, again, I think what consensus is like 68, 70,000, right? Like, I think in that ballpark, the risks are probably a weaker number if you have more drag from government jobs coming, from the delayed retirements or push-outs from DOGE of early last year. But again, I think when I look at the labor market, the risk, I think, is that we have more weakness in the medium term, and that you have a market that is more reactive or overreactive to a zero print when you say, well, again, if the break-even number is only 25, having a 0 or a negative 25 is actually not that out of the realm of possibility.